Hello, I'm Lisa de Croix, and welcome to my Tarot Journaling online course. Today we're going to be doing a project using the Major Arcana, picking 3 cards that represent different aspects of ourself. The first card would be a card to represent the essential self. That's who we feel we are, maybe all throughout our life. The second card is going to be the shadow card, and the third card will be the desired self. So before I start talking about the project, I want to just give you a little bit of advice on supplies. The first thing to do is to look around your home and see what you have already. You don't really have to go out and buy expensive art supplies. You can always add to it as time goes on if you really enjoy this project. So I would say the first thing you really need is a journal. I love these Strathmore visual journals. This is the small size, but you can get them this size or a little bit larger. They're very good because they have this very durable, heavy-duty paper that can take anything, watercolor, collaging. So that's a good option, but really any journal would work, preferably without lines, but lines could work too. Another thing you could use is a binder and punch holes into a variety of different types of paper. That can be kind of an exciting, different way of keeping a journal. You want to find some nice pens to write with, or pencils. If you have any kind of art supplies like colored pencils or paint or pastels, those are great. But really all you need is a glue stick or some type of glue, a pair of scissors, and then collage items. Now, what you want to do when you build your collage collection is to look through magazines and catalogs, and old calendars make excellent backgrounds, is to find a variety of figures that would represent different kinds of archetypes. So I'll just give you an idea of some things you might find. You know, you can find postcards. Here is something that could maybe be a high priestess. I found lots of lover imagery. Here's it's a little hard to see with the shine, but that's, I think, an Egon Schiele, also postcard. There's 2 watercolor figures. Here's a really little image of some lovers. And then this was from, I think, some kind of a free giveaway magazine, but it's a lovely image. That could be the lovers too. You might find something like this for a hierophant, or even that. You know, be creative. You don't have to kind of go with the traditional look of what hierophants are. And then while you're looking for imagery, always look out for the swords, the cups, the wands, the pentacles. So here's a figure with a sword. He could be a knight of swords. Here's, I live in New Mexico, in Santa Fe, and there's always a lot of these Day of the Dead kind of figures, and they make good death imagery. So, you know, maybe find a shoebox or a folder or something, and just every time you're looking through a magazine and you see an image that appeals to you, tear it out. So for today's project, I want you to select a background first of all. So the background is going to reflect your mood. And I'm going to show you 3 or 4 possible backgrounds that could be used for this project, and just the different kind of moods that they have. So here is something I tore out of a gardening magazine, or it shows a garden, and that might be something, if you're feeling really, you know, like you're flourishing and that you have a lot of vitality and energy, that would be a good background to use. If you're sort of in an organizing, planning mood, here's an interior from a decorating magazine. You can see it's very linear and very clean, and that sort of, you know, would be a good background for this project. If you're feeling kind of moody, things with water are often a good background. So here's an underwater scene, and this came from a calendar. Calendars make great backgrounds because they don't have a lot of type or writing on it. And here is another background. Maybe you don't know immediately what this is. I want to say that the most important thing when you're choosing your imagery and working on these projects is to really go with your intuitive sense, what you feel, what you're really attracted to. We're going to let go of the inner critic and the analytical mind. That might come in some places, but mostly you're going to go by just kind of the feeling that you have. So when you're looking for a background for this particular project, I want you to tune in, maybe shut your eyes and take some deep breaths and really feel your body. What do you feel? What are you happy? Are you excited? Are you, and that doesn't just have to pertain to this actual moment now, but maybe, you know, your kind of mood for the week, the month, you know, do you have a lot of energy? So select a background to do with that. And then once you have that background, you're going to choose the 3 cards. And as I said before, you know, you can look through your collage items. Another idea is to take a tarot deck and to make photocopies of it. I've actually done that with my deck, Tarot de Croix, and I do have that for sale on my website. But you know, you can use your favorite deck. You can take it to the local printers and lay it out on the copy machine. If you can do that at home, even better. But you want to have a nice collection of imagery to use for these workshops. And then over time you can add different things. You know, you can look around the house and see if you have stickers or feathers or glitter or you know, all kinds of ephemera lying around. It's you know, make a space for this, and hopefully, you know, you'll continue to join me every month. I'm going to be giving a different workshop once a month. I'm going to go through the major arcana and then the different suits and the court cards. I'm going to give a little lesson about the different suits and major arcana. You can skip that if you feel like you really know the tarot, or you might just want to see what my impression is. I will be showing my deck, Tarot de Croix, so I have a slight different take. And you know, the main thing about this workshop is to really go into it with the sense of play and discovery. This is a way to really sink in deep into your own process with the tarot. Maybe let go of the sort of the standard definitions of what tarot is, and really, you know, come to it with a sense of wonder, kind of like the Fool. You know, we're beginning a journey together, and trust the journey and see what it reveals for you. I want you to look through your tarot imagery and pick out 3 cards that really have some kind of relationship to who you feel you are at this present moment. So I'd like you to pick a card that represents your essential self. That is who you are, maybe all the time, buried deep within different emotions and different experiences. Sometimes people really relate to their birth card and will use that. And I will give you a little explanation on how to figure out your birth card later. But I, in fact, am going to use my birth card. So here I have the sun. And what I've done is I've cut it out here. And one tip about collaging is that it's much easier if you don't cut really close to the figure, if you leave a little halo around it. That way you don't have to deal with tiny little fingers and hair, stuff that is almost impossible to keep intact. So I've chosen the sun as my essential self. That is my birth card, and I feel like it's my nature to really shine, to really spread enthusiasm, to inspire others and to help them grow. So I've got the sun here, and I'm going to place it somewhere on the landscape that makes sense. And here you see the sun probably was shining there, so I'm going to place my image just there, and I've cut the bottom of the card to kind of fit with the top of the landscape here. Then my next image was the shadow self. So, you know, I really kind of couldn't quite decide what part of me is in my shadow self. So I just went with what I said before. I talked about the Fool, and I was like, you know, actually in my Fool card, there is a shadow. And I'm going to learn something from this exercise. I don't have it all worked out yet. This is sort of an unfolding of the psyche. So I cut out my Fool. I actually left that shadow out. And I'm going to place him on these rocks here. So I'd like you to find an image in the major arcana that relates to your shadow self. And the shadow self, you know, is not necessarily, you know, the dark part of you. It can also be the hidden part of you. So it could even be something good that you don't really express very often. It's just something that isn't really obvious, something that's maybe in the unconscious that you need to bring out. And we're going to play with that today. We're going to see what lessons it has to teach us. Then next, I chose a card to represent who I'm striving to become. And I chose the world. And so I kind of going to place her high up there, because the world card to me is almost sort of this enlightened state of being. And, you know, I feel like I'm very earthly. I'm very tied to my earthly problems, and I want to really kind of supersede that. I want to get to the place where I feel really connected to spirit. And so I chose the world card. And so I'm having her sort of float in the sky. So once you've got your cards cut out, you can paste them down. And, you know, I just use glue stick. But you can use Elmer's glue, or Yes glue is an excellent glue to use as well. So once you've pasted on your major arcana archetypes, I suggest that you integrate it somehow into the background, and there's a number of different ways you can do it. I'll show you some of the different supplies I use, but you know, you can use what's at hand. You don't really have to go out and purchase these things. So on the right, the Fool, I've used these pan pastels. They come in these little cases like this, and they're great because they don't transfer to the other page. And I used a Q-tip. This is black. And I went round the Fool with the Q-tip, kind of smearing it on. And now I'm going to kind of blend it out. So he just sort of sits more in the actual work than on top of it. I mean, he is on top of it, but it's just a way of integrating it rather than seeing those cut edges. And then here on the world, what I used for that was these Caran d'Ache. They Swiss kind of crayons that are water soluble. They also make fantastic face paints, by the way. So I took the gold and I went around her figure with the gold. And I actually kind of went onto that little edge that I had talked about, you know, leaving a little edge around the piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brush and dip it in some water. Just wipe it on the paper towel so it's not too wet, because you don't want the paper to start buckling. But then you start kind of smearing it a little bit out. And this is another way to kind of integrate the piece that you're working on a little bit more into the background. And then last I used on this one, the sun, I used a water-soluble pencil. These are Inktense. And they kind of work a lot like the Caran d'Ache. You kind of draw around the image. And then once you've drawn the pencil mark, you can take some water and kind of blend it a little bit out. Or you can just use a regular colored pencil. You don't have to actually blend it with water. But that way it just has a little bit of a halo. Kind of makes it feel a little bit, a little less like it's separate from the background. I'm just smearing it with my fingers. I use my fingers as tools a lot. So here's my finished piece. What I've done is add little bubbles. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see them. So the sun has a voice, and the sun is saying that I suggest when you do this exercise, you write in the first person. So you give each of the archetypes a voice. So the sun says, I am radiating my light out into the world. I shine so that others can grow. And the world says, everything comes together in a numinous blend of the upper and lower worlds. We are all one. We are united. We contain everything. And the shadow was so interesting. I wrote something in pencil and then I smudged some charcoal over it and totally lost that shadow. And then I wrote it again. And here it is, very murky. The shadow wants to stay hidden. But also, I laugh at myself. So what also you can see is that around the edges, I put some paper, just some decorative paper, just to kind of frame it. And it's kind of a simple piece. It's not very complicated. So that might be something you would share with others if you come to the class. And if you don't come to the class, you can kind of write it down in a kind of a little blog if you'd like. Or you could just photograph your piece and maybe we can read it, or maybe we can't. So, often I can hide writing by putting little envelopes with writing in it, or a card that's kind of attached with a ribbon. So if you want something to be private, I kind of suggest you show that it's private. So that's the completed project, and I wish you well on this journey. Hope to see what you produce, and happy creating.